So we were just talking about that most of the country has had some type of cold this week.
That's right.
It's snowing or freezing or near freezing just about everywhere right now with variety of snow totals. We're in Oklahoma and I typically get ice here. But we haven't this year. We've just gotten some snow, which is quite welcomed
I feel
recently.
weird saying this right now, but I grew up in Colorado, so I'm not like unfamiliar with the cold. But for a long time, I'm in California now, which like basically doesn't experience seasons. And so I find myself missing like winter time, and people are like, "Why would you miss winter?" And I'm like, and then I tell them I'm from Colorado, and they tell me that I just will never forget this. I can't remember who it was, but they were like, it's because Colorado is the Bahamas of winter. It like snows, and then you can ski on it, and there's mountains, and it's fluffy, and then it's sunny the
That.
next day, and it goes away.
Yeah.
Whereas like most other places, it's like sleet and ice, and it's just terrible. And I'm like, that resonates.
Oh, well, you went from one extreme to the other because
Yeah, yeah.
California, palm trees for Christmas just does not seem right to me. I have a hard time with that. I really do.
I I also have a hard time with that, honestly. So yeah.
But Colorado, oh, the snowdrifts there in Colorado are just beautiful.
John, we were just emailing. 22 inches outside Boston is wild.
Yeah, we were in a chat with Jonathan earlier, and he was sharing his snow totals and that he has a snow plow. So I don't know if it's one of those
He's
that
got
you
a
walk
snow
behind
throw. I don't think he has a plow. He has a snow thrower.
thrower. So it's like
Well,
the
no
Yeah.
complaining from John then. He has machines helping him.
Right. He's got machines. Rob, had to do it with these guns right here.
As you
So,
should.
yeah.
As you should.
I I had to shovel, and I have a farm now. So I get some kind of prize. I actually fell asleep on my couch last night at like 7:30 because I was so tired from shoveling all the snow in my.
Oh man. Yeah. I probably need that form of exercise, forced exercise, but here I am sitting in my shed for like 9 hours a day. So, you know.
well, we uh we have a family group chat that there's almost 20 in, and the ages range from 78 to 14. So the conversations are just all over the place,
Yeah.
and everybody's been snowed in. So today the conversation has been about skullets. Like Riff Raff has
Oh
on the
yeah.
Rocky Horror Picture Show. And
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah, and new shows that are coming out. But I
Like the
think everybody's,
hairdo? Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, yeah, oh yeah.
I've never heard that word before, skullets.
Well,
That's
Minnie,
hilarious.
Minnie in the group thread had not either, and I was like,
Ah,
it's been
love it.
fun. It's been great. I love this group chat that we've got with all the family members because
That's
it's
fun. Yeah.
it is. It's so much fun having, especially that age range, because the things that they say, you just go, wait, what does that mean? Hold on, kids. It's it's so entertaining.
I can
Well,
only imagine, Liz.
it's lovely. Speaking of entertaining conversations, so many of you here know that Rob has joined us before with Digit, and we wanted to have him come back. And so this is part two. So this
It is.
is the get your questions ready because ask Rob anything session.
Oh
So
boy. What are you gearing me up for here, Liz?
You're in the hot seat, Rob.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah. I played
well,
this
I think
years ago when I married into my wife's family. So, it's just
Love it.
different kind of hot seat, but we'll go from there.
well, I promise it will probably be kinder. So
My wife's family is very kind, so it was okay. But
good. Well, it's all fun and friendly. So,
yeah, great. Thank you
lots of
for having me back. I'm really excited to answer questions and chat with folks. And I'm sure you'll say this, but the more interactive, the better in this kind of thing. So
For
layer
sure.
oh,
it, throw it out there for sure.
100%. I mean, I think that that's where we're all at is we're in discovery, space. And so the way that you discover is to ask questions, no stupid
Yeah,
questions.
I,
So that's
I
how we
agree.
learn.
Yeah,
So,
let's test the bounds on Rob's accounting knowledge a little bit, which I will admit when I reach limits. So
Well, everybody knows Heather and I, so I skipped past that. And so, for those of you who weren't here before, Rob is the head of GTM for Digits. Do you want to go ahead and tell us what all that means?
The easiest way to go about that is just like I do business things for the most part. I, I've served in a myriad of different roles across Digits. I was the first kind of like non-engineering person into the company. I had met Jeff at Twitter years past when both of our past companies were acquired into Twitter. They were both developer tools, and so I got to know Jeff then. And when he started up Digits, I had subsequently went to go work for the Alexa team at Amazon for a while, basically like doing deals to help make Alexa smarter. Like, hey, she doesn't know a lot about lions. Like, let's go talk to National Geographic about like getting more information about lions, like that kind of thing. But when I saw Jeff started up Digits, I kind of just sent him an email. I was like, hey, I don't know if you need a business guy, but I'd love to work together. And the timing worked out. It's been 6 years now of like building and growing Digits as a platform of technology, partnering with accounting firms, business owners, finance professionals in general. So everything has gone in a bunch of different ways, but yeah, excited to kind of like help continue to work with the accounting profession on how AI and all the above around all that is going to, you know, I hesitate to use the word impact because there's almost a negative connotation to that, but like what is the places where these things are actually going to matter, make an impact, and potentially drive different ways of work within the profession. And so it's been a ton of fun meeting with the community and folks in the profession over time. So yeah, that's high level on me, but obviously if other people have questions, happy to say more. But
Lots of exploratory type
Yeah,
of work.
for sure. Lots of you've been in at this for a bit with lots of really great companies. So
yeah, it's
pretty awesome.
yeah, it's been a long journey, and specifically at Digits, it takes a really long time to build a general ledger. And so we've like been in the market and talking with accounting firms for a very long time as well on just like trying to understand the problem set and the needs. And I'm sure folks on this call, including Liz and Heather, have seen different iterations of Digits through different parts of
Yes.
our life cycle
Oh, yeah.
as a company as well. So now that we've reached our final form, it's exciting for us to kind of like navigate with the community together. So
Well, and even from there, you're still evolving. So there's really, I think about AI and there's not really an end in sight. It's just as you're able to do more, you do. So
yeah.
that's really the direction of this conversation today is, what all can you do with AI, especially inside of Digits, and
Mhm.
make sure that if you've got these questions, start to throw them over into chat because we're going to look at Digits. We're going to really talk about Digits, not really so much look at Digits. If you did not get a chance to see inside Digits, we will point you to the YouTube um, recording from the last time that Rob was with us. But this is really going to be more of a conversation. And so, if there's something that you've been thinking about, you've been wanting to explore, this is your opportunity to talk about it.
And
Awesome.
obviously if it makes sense at any point to um show part of the product, I certainly can do that too. But
That's
yeah,
great.
we'll let
Thank
it
you.
kind of like navigate into that where necessary. So
Free flow as it will. So, how Digits powers the modern firm? I think that that's the big question that so many have. I think that earlier we were talking to Jonathan, and the conversation that we were having there was, what does that modern firm look like, and how does AI play a role in it? And you were just talking a second ago, Rob, that building an AI GL has taken a lot of training of the models,
mhm.
which requires a lot of data, which requires a lot of, interpretation of that data. So, there's been, like you said, a very active development of
Mhm.
Digits.
Mhm. Well, and I think like unpacking that a little bit further is there will need to be probably a development period of what it took a long time to build the ledger itself. 5 years and more of a research and development phase. We fully launched last March, so it hasn't even fully been a year. And even to like accounting firms with our partnership program and all the above, that just launched like at scaling new heights last year. And so, like in that world, we're still very much in our infancy, while at the same time having been around for a while. And part of that is that at the same time of it taking a long time to build, part of the reason it takes a long time to build is you can't really launch a half-baked ledger. We're familiar enough with the accounting profession that like you do need to be able to meet the needs of the market. Otherwise, it's like, why would I ever make a switch or make a change? And beyond that, you can't just meet the needs, you need to be wildly better. And that's where I think the AI side of this really comes into play, that we've spent a lot of time building in, automating as we go through kind of like those steps that it takes in like a month end close. So it took a long time to build that software, and there's a lot more yet to come and yet to do. And I can talk through some of that too. But it's probably going to take a long time for accounting firms to structure themselves around the efficiencies that AI gains and provides you as well. It's not going to be instantaneous. And we
Mhm.
already see firms who have gone all in on digits, and even the structure of their accounting firm is different when they basically have people only doing review work versus having folks like doing data input or aggregating data from different systems and in all the above. And this is again going to probably change depending on your like niche you focus in. Like if you do construction, like boy, I mean, more power to you, but like there's a lot more manual work as it relates to like certain industries. And so some of this is going to be faster for some places and slower in others, but at the same time, the infrastructure being there for us to kind of like provide the tools to accountants that arguably should have like been built into software a long time ago. Um, we can now
Agreed.
do. So
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, you're immediately taking me to this place of, where I think of construction and you're talking about all the different variables and dependencies, and that maybe there should have been, more of that integrated to begin with. That's been the difficult thing for the construction industry, for e-commerce. There's a lot restaurant businesses. I can just keep going on and on. Like there's
yeah.
so many different variables. And so the accounting piece of it, the GL is part of it, but data comes from a lot of different sources.
It
Mhm.
it does, and there's so many different exceptions, right, with
Yeah.
those particular
Mhm.
industries, right, that go outside of something that can be automated, right?
Mhm.
Like inventory
Mhm.
is probably the biggest one, right? And I don't want to go
Yep.
down a rabbit hole, but with inventory, we're talking about a physical piece, and yes, we have barcode scanners, and we've got, you know, QR codes and things like that that are supposed to work really well until you're faced with, the 5 times during the day that you just need to get the order out the door and somebody doesn't follow a procedure, right?
Yep.
So it's,
100%.
you know,
And
yeah.
yeah, well,
That's
and on
probably a
our end, it's
balance
like
too.
Mm.
where there's like a challenge in what you're talking about there, Heather, and also something that's like deeply exciting for how we think
Mhm.
about digits too, which is like, if I'm just being honest, like we're not going to build like direct inventory into digits in the near term. We'll probably much more likely partner. We have a fully
Mhm.
open
Right.
API. We'll go to the fish bowls and to the katanas and the folks like that are providing inventory. And some of them are going to be more AI enabled than others. But what's exciting for us is we can understand like, sure, you've been integrating your inventory to QuickBooks for years, but that doesn't mean that the integration is perfect or that it's doing everything that you
Right.
want it to do or it's booking things in as automated as ways it could. We can start these integrations from like a whole new world to some extent, and really like build on the automation that you may have always wanted because there's less like cruft, if you will, that's in the way. Where even just for Gusto, it's a really simple example. And I know it's just payroll, which has like been automated for years. But if your client is on Gusto and you connect it to Digits, you basically don't have to do anything. It just auto books all of the journal entries, even down to if you have department level spend, it'll just book the department journals for you. And I think that just, it's not like QuickBooks and their Gusto connection isn't capable of doing that. Some of these things are going to feel slightly like table stakes, but if you take the same approach across a bunch of different things, like Stripe is like a different example, where it's
Mhm.
like you can't actually book Stripe in the way that you might want to to give you the deep dive ability that you might want to in your ledger. Because if you booked every single Stripe transaction, it would probably break QuickBooks.
Hmm.
And so like that's a whole different area where we actually can book every single transaction into Digits and it doesn't break the product. And so you have a different level of auditability and all the above. So anyway, that was a long-winded like rant, but
No, we need the long
We do.
answers because
We do. Yes.
all you're doing is just sparking these questions in my head that makes me want to say. So what you're alluding to is that we're going to have more control. I mean, is that correct?
more control at the same. So what's interesting about that, and we can get into this more, is like absolutely more control and visibility and deep dive ability because there's less like, and again, this depends on how everything gets structured as we build more and more. We started all this on inventory. So, depending on how much detail you want in your ledger about your inventory versus in an outside tool, we'll need to navigate that with folks that are kind of like building or wanting those needs. But on a high level, at the same time with AI, there's a big feeling in the industry of like it doesn't give you as much control. And so
Hmm.
then you're just like, well, what's the balance of those two things? Because I could end up sounding contradictory where it's like if we have the ability to handle scale in a different way where everything gets booked in appropriately, that's great. But then if all of it's getting automated, I think it was David Leary was saying this the other day on one of his podcasts. This is probably 6 months ago now, but he was like, well, maybe you booked 97%, but then I spent 97% of my time trying to figure out what 3% it didn't book right. Right. And so
Hmm.
there, which really resonated and is something we've been very conscious about is to like how we actively like raise up the things so that the accountant can actually focus on the right information within the product. So it's not just a giant black box. Like,
I feel
why
like
is this decision getting made kind of thing?
you're going into like a whole other area that for me, whenever I think about what I would love the future of AI to look like in our firm, is I want to come to my desk in the morning. I want to open up my general ledger and I want it to give me my top five things that I need to focus on. Like
Hmm.
my brain is best
Right.
in the morning, early in the morning. Tell me what are those five things that are most important instead of me having to go and find them. I'd
Yep.
rather have a summary of those action items that I need to take, and then that'd be my 3%. So what did AI not do? Go
Hmm.
ahead and just give me those prompts.
Yep.
And the opportunities, right?
Yep. Hmm.
So not just the task level is, but uncovering opportunities, that could deepen the relationship with the client, help them in ways that we maybe hadn't thought of before. So really
Hmm.
bring it to that next level.
And
Yeah.
I almost feel like what you're talking about, Heather, is like you have a variety of ways that you could play with it. It's like if you're
Mhm.
more in the bookkeeper role, give me the bookkeeper tasks. If you're more in that advisory role, like
Yes.
what you were just
Yeah.
talking about, give me more of the advisory tasks. So, tailor it to fit whatever my role is and my duties
Hmm.
are, but, take the guesswork out of it.
Yep.
Love
Anyway,
it.
that's where I would love to head. That's
100%. And there's a lot that we're building out right now. It's very basic at this point in time, but so currently there's like every firm gets their like own firm dashboard. So you can come in and see all your different clients. And it does have like a little pill, if you will, that says like the amount of like work items that have been flagged
mm,
within that client, which is like a very light level version of prioritization where you could basically just say like here's the one that has the most work to do basically. Now the thing is like right now in Digits that is reflective of two core things, that number that shows up. The first is like a low confidence transaction. So hey, we're getting this bank feed in, we're automatically booking like as much as we can, but then we might have like 5 transactions that we need you to go pay attention to. Like boom, those will get surfaced to you. But at the same time, maybe you also had some questions for your clients that you sent like 2 weeks ago in Digits and they answered you. Those are also going to be layered into that number. And so
mm.
those are two of the vectors right now. But as we go, and so like one of the features that we launched really recently, and I think we're planning on talking about like cleanups as like a larger topic area later, um, or even like RevRec or not RevRec, what call it? Sorry, reconciliation. That's what I'm looking for. Like auto reconciliations, where eventually we'll just flag to you in that number, like, hey, this reconciliation, we kicked it off because we auto pulled the bank statement, but there's like three things within it that like look broken or that you need to go pay attention to. And so
Yep.
ultimately we can help you navigate that a lot more cleanly as we have more and more of these pieces getting automated. Not only for you of like what action do I need to take, but also what did the AI do? There's a whole different
Yes.
layer to this, which is like visibility and what work was already done so that I know like where I'm getting pulled in.
Well, and I feel like, inside of a firm, one of the biggest struggles that we've always had is exactly what you're just talking about. So maybe the reconciliation is broken, or we had situations where not all bookkeepers knew how to handle all kinds of
Yeah.
scenarios where you couldn't reconcile the books because there was something that was not going to allow it.
Hmm.
But not every team member was trained in every different client type and every different scenario, and so there's
Yeah.
a whole lot of different variables. And I feel like what AI can do is it can be trained that here's the different cases. Maybe it's a date situation, maybe it's penny that's
Mhm.
off. And so,
Yeah.
pointing the finger to say, here's a small thing that might be the reason that it's wrong is way, way more helpful than having a team member who's not maybe fully capable. And I don't think that you should have to have the most senior level accountant on your team reconciling the books. I really think that it should be somebody who's a lower level team member, because most of the time it's okay. But whatever it's not, then escalate it. So I feel like creating scenarios where you don't have to do a lot of guesswork, you
Yeah.
don't have to spend a lot of time examining, especially if you don't have the right training in order to be able to understand what you're looking at, is huge in the accounting industry. I think we
Well,
struggle with that particular area of just hiring.
what's awesome about what you just referenced is that's actually exactly how we built our like auto reconciliations product. And I can just quickly like just show what this looks like just as an
Yeah.
example.
Yeah, let me stop
But
sharing screen. Here we go.
um I don't let me know if you can share my screen or if you can
Yeah,
see
let
Yeah.
me
my
see it.
screen, but
We can
like
see it.
this is
Yeah.
just an
Thank you.
example of like an auto rec. So like in digits, if so like Mercury is a good example. We just auto fetch the bank statements because Mercury allows us to get them via API. So we've pulled in this bank statement. It was automatically brought in. April was done already. So I clicked into May and the little sparkles mean there's something you need to pay attention to. But you can see how there's like a pixel bounding box towards all of this, so it's easy to scan and make sure everything's there. But it's basically what this is doing is calling out three things. First is like, hey, this transaction hasn't cleared yet. It's not on the bank statement. So like I can click that on or off. That is not what I meant to do. Sorry. Um, you can click that on or off. Oh, I was in view mode. So if I was in edit mode, I could like turn that on or off. But in that world, we're also proactively flagging to you some things that we're finding. In this first one, and you see it's highlighting it on the left side, is there's a missing transaction in your ledger. So the AI is actively flagging like, hey, there's something on this bank statement that didn't come through via the API. It's not in there yet. So I can just click create transaction and it creates a transaction directly from here. Um, and all that
Wow,
goes
that's
on.
nice.
And so then
Hmm.
at the same time, it's going to flag here that this Gusto transaction you have in as June right now in your ledger, but it's actually in for May 31st. And so you just click change to May 31st, it changes the date and it's done. And so this is the way we're thinking about how to make this smarter. So instead of your junior employee needing to find that thing to flag appropriately
Yep.
on like how do I handle this, we can proactively bring some of that to light
Service, yeah.
for you so that it's more of a review task than it is anything else. So,
You know what that also feels like? Keep that up for just a second,
oh,
because the
sorry.
other thing that I'm noticing here, and to me, this is a nice trend. We're doing works in the general ledger. It feels like it's nice to also have some of the, I don't want to say full workflow, but yet what you're having in those flags is that is flagging you on the tasks that need to be done. So it is
Correct.
calling it out, and there is a bit of an element there that is, a task manager.
Yeah,
No,
definitely.
agreed.
And
Yeah.
there's,
It's flagging like in the tax world we would call them what would we call them? Hello, brain.
The snow brain.
We'd call them diagnostics. right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what we would call
Yep.
them. In the tax
Yep.
world, we call them diagnostics, where we're reviewing the tax return. Something comes up and the system flags us to say, hey, this is something that you need to scrutinize with a little more attention than
Yes.
the other things within this return. So that's really what we're talking about here is diagnostics to say, here's something that we think we know what it is, but we really need your expertise to verify it and take action.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I like you bringing up kind of like, so structurally how we are thinking about building out our product is like directly related to the month end close process and the steps that are needing to be taken in order to automate each of those pieces. And so at DCPA last year, so like the in DC, I don't know how many folks were there or not there, but Jeff kind of like did a presentation on stage at DCPA and kind of like the bold statement, but basically was that we believe on our end, and obviously I mentioned there's more complicated businesses, so this isn't like 1,000% all encompassing, but broadly 95% of the month end close process will be automated by the end of 2026. And
Mm.
so when you think about that as to like our structure of what do we build next, it's like you go from bookkeeping where we will auto book the transactions as they come in. And what we found is as of the last month end close, I think the December month end close, we looked across every single client on Digits and we had automatically booked 98% of the transactions, which means that only 2% of the transactions on Digits period were actually ever touched by a human.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
in that world, when you think about just like, okay, well, that's one step is like get the transactions in. And obviously that 2% is probably like really complicated things. Like I see a question from Michael that's asking about like accrual accounting, which Michael, I might need to ask you for a clarification question on like, do you just mean like accrual schedules and those being built into the product, et cetera? Or do you mean something different? Because Digits does handle accrual accounting. You can book journal entries and all the above. Um, but like managing the schedule is something that's like, I don't know, maybe a little bit of a sneak in here, but that is something we're actively building is schedules directly into the product. And so that'll be something that'll just be automated as you move forward. But clearly that 2% though is sometimes things that you're spending the most amount of your time on anyway. But that's the bookkeeping side. As you move in, it's like, great, we've now automated reconciliations and we'll continue to make that more like understand where the human in the loop comes in, but then you have the schedules part. So you have booking the schedules. And then as you move further down that month end close checklist, you get to kind of like reviewing and correcting and like quality control. So,
Mm.
hey, does everything have a department if it needs a department? Does everything like have a receipt that needs a receipt? Is everything booked as a fixed asset that needs to be a fixed asset? There's a bunch of these like quality control things you go through, which are all,
Ah,
again, pieces that we will continue to automate. And then you have the analyzing and the reporting and how do I advise my clients appropriately. And so as you step through that month end close process, you'll notice that each one of those pieces has a human in the loop aspect to it. Like, sure, we booked 98% of it, but we also probably flagged some percentage of those transactions to you to review that you needed to
I
review. And so,
I think you're 100% on par with where everybody's brain is going because we threw out this question into we threw out this poll, and one of the things that came back is catch errors. So really, everybody's wanting AI to catch the errors, the trends, and the anomalies, which that is exactly what you're speaking to.
Right.
mhm,
In
yep,
this cash flow and forecasting, I know that there's a lot of desire here because then you start getting into some more advisory work. You get into some more higher pay type work, and
mhm.
then I thought this was interesting. So getting real time financial insights without waiting till month end, we had zero, which I don't know if it's because the idea of getting to real-time financial close without waiting till the month end is so foreign that people are like not even like capable of getting there, or if they're just like, really, this is the struggle right here, is the catching the errors.
What's interesting about this is that if this poll was to an operator of a business, that first bullet point would be what 100% of them say. And so you can start to
Yeah.
easily see the dichotomy between the industry, and this isn't criticism, to be clear, it's just like
The roles.
observation on like
Mhm.
how we can help the profession kind of like merge the interests of the user or the client with how the accounting firm does their work, which it's like the thing that 0% of people selected is what the business owner actually wants. And so, but on our end, you understand that there's so much work that goes into actually getting that, that like, why would that be the thing that I'm focusing on? Because like I have all these other problems. And, and so like on our end, this is where we've kind of like taken this stance, and it's less about taking a stance, but more about just like, this is what happened is I think the accounting profession just failed by the software that was created for you to use to do the accounting. Like all these barriers that come in on like catching errors and automating schedules, all that kind of stuff, like these things should be happening to help you bridge that gap and to bring these things closer.
Correct.
So that, because like it's not that you don't want to provide that, but it's hard to make that choice of like, yes, I'm getting real-time financials and insights, when it's like, really, as an accountant in the accounting firms that I talk to, they're like, well, right now, I don't really want my client to have real-time insight because I haven't really looked at or reviewed any of this stuff, and they're going to ask me a
Is
bunch of
it
stupid
right?
questions, and then it takes me extra time to deal with it, and it's just like,
Yeah.
and it's frustrating, right?
You
We
know,
don't want them to make incorrect assumptions.
we don't. And it's, you know, yeah, yeah, we don't want them to make incorrect assumptions. So it's really for us, until those, you know, those two, the catching the errors, trends and anomalies, and the improved forecasting and cash flow visibility, until those things are kind of handled and we can 100% rely on them, then we're not comfortable with them having real-time financial insights because we can't verify that they're correct, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But this is where Digits needs to be a shepherd a little bit here. Shepherd's a strong, like, not the right word, but just like, yes, you're right. At the same time, that is what the operator expects and is actually asking even of Digits. If they come in and just kind of like use Digits, like, this is what I want, this is why I'm interested. Like the
Mhm.
operator of the business cares slightly less about, like, they're fine with like 95% directional. Whereas the accountant, almost like by training, is not okay with that.
Well,
And so,
we have a saying that an A minus is not acceptable. An A plus is what you're striving for.
which it's hard to say that's wrong, right?
I know.
I don't want every business owner on the planet running around with just like, pardon my French, but like shitty financials. Like if anything, like Digits is not successful if that's the case, right? Like, but we need to help bridge that gap appropriately. But that's also inclusive of the engagement with the client. And are there different ways that we can then help the client understand what's half baked and what isn't? Because part of their questions are asking is like, they accounting's an iceberg problem. It's like they're just like, you're just categorizing on the other side, which you're like, no, I'm not. There's a million more things that are going into all this, but they have no visibility into those million other things. And if you try to explain it to them, just eyes gloss over, right? And so it's not productive. And so there's ways that Digits can potentially help with that, where it's like, within Digits, we have this like Ask Digits bar, which is basically like an AI agent that exists for the accountant to use if you want, or the operator who's invited in, and they can go ask that thing a bunch of their dumb questions. And over time, that's going to get smarter, even allow accountants to train it with your own knowledge and information, where then it could basically just say like, hey, that work isn't done yet, or this isn't completed yet, or go ask so-and-so. There's a bunch of different ways that this continues to iterate itself, where we can help be that bridge. So yes, we're going to automate and give you a lot more efficiency, and you can choose to use that efficiency in whatever way you'd like. Maybe you're restructuring your firm where you just have, you know, not the junior level role, but it's more of that review role. And that's where a lot of these accounting firms that have gone all in on Digits are doing successfully. But then from there, like, how do I then rework how I typically engage with my client? And what does that world look like? And
I think you're very much onto something right there.
the
There's
AICPA is like, do advisory. And then all the bookkeepers and accountants are like, what's advisory? And then they're like,
how? Like we can't even get our day job done.
Right.
So
like, tell me what it is.
Yeah.
and then it's like, well, I'm going to send them these cool reports. And then you send them the reports and the clients still don't look at them. And so then it's just like, what is this? What is it? And so like, and again, it becomes a bridge. And sorry, Liz, I didn't mean to cut you off. But yeah, anyway.
Oh no, no, no. I'm just gonna keep throwing questions at you. So we've got a couple of questions, and one of them is from Brenda, and she wants to know how long before construction
Yeah.
projects.
It probably depends, if I'm honest, Brenda, on like the depth of what you mean by construction project. So like if you need like full on job costing, it's probably going to be like us integrating to JobTread or like whatever the hot job costing like company is. Now, if you're just talking about light level projects where it's basically like a department with like a start and end date to it, type of project where it's like linked to a customer, etc., that is on our nearer term roadmap. I don't have an exact timeline. We just launched departments and locations at the end of last year, so like in November. And so projects is on the nearer term, but there's slightly more complications to that. So, but that's, I'm hesitant to say Q1, but like in the first half of the year, it's highly likely that that will land. Obviously, if there's like specific asks, feel free to, I'm sure like you, Liz and Heather can share my email with you, but happy to hear more if there are specific like questions or needs as it relates to that too. But
No, and I
heard
think
that that is necessary.
yeah, a lot of people are, especially for reporting purposes.
Mhm.
It's great to have profitability and be able to see that. And so, I would imagine projects. That's kind of where my mind goes into is
Yeah.
the income and
We hear it
expenses to
similarly
track
for
profitability.
nonprofits too, where that's like they need to do grant tracking. The thing is
Right.
for nonprofits is like you can kind of hack it with like classes and locations where you just use the balance sheet as like a holding account and you just yeah, anyway, there's different ways to hack grant tracking where it's like it works technically right now. It's not a project, but you can't do that as much with some industries like construction. You can't really like hack like a high level class in order
Well,
to
especially since there's so many, most of these
Right.
businesses have got volumes of that.
yeah.
Okay, so next question. So this is from our beloved Candy. She said that she doesn't know much about digits outside of scaling new heights. So she'd like to know about rules.
Mhm.
Who creates the rules? Where do you create the rules? Or do they happen automatically? And I'm going to answer this one and then hand it over to you, Rob.
Okay.
But this is my interpretation. Feel free to then go and
Love it.
correct me and
Please fire
elaborate
away.
further.
Yeah.
But whenever I think about why I love the AI general ledgers, it's because the rules aren't as necessary. So if I, for example, I had a year's worth of bookkeeping that I needed to get caught up. So in QuickBooks land, I was able to you'd go over there and you would create your rules, and then you'd spend time making sure that the rules were correct, and then apply all the different rules, or then you can, then create the next rule and then apply the rule and create the next rule and apply the rule. So you have to do that one by one for each of those different vendor types. Where AI in GLs or GLAIs come into play is you don't have to create those rules. It's able to either look at the history or for you to say one time, here's the way that that transaction should be coded, and then it just applies it magically. So unless there's some reason for you to change it in between the way that you're using that particular vendor, it's going to code it automatically. So there's no need for you to hard set a rule. Now, I'm going to pass it over to you, Rob.
I was just gonna say that I'll take it a step further than that is like rules actually don't exist in digits at all. So like even if you wanted to change something, that's a fundamental architecture difference between something like digits and a more legacy like accounting software where rules need to exist. It's kind of like the original version of machine learning from like 30 years ago, but really what it is like you are the machine learning at that point because you're sitting there. It's like, how do I make sure this captures Costco, but not like cost plus? Like, what rule do I have to create to do that? And like, you don't have to do that in digits. We use what's called a vector similarity model on the back end. Obviously, I can go into whatever level of detail is otherwise interested there, but ultimately, what that means is in a legacy system, they just see like UBER as text. And so at that point, like they don't really know that Uber is typically booked the same as Lyft, and that those two things are potentially similar to each other, or that they have similar categories, or that sometimes it's booked for business travel and sometimes it's booked for personal, etc. Like all these different ways that different spend, customers, vendors, categories are related to each other is unknown in like a legacy system. And it fundamentally is a data architecture problem, and is why some of those systems are probably like less good at making suggestions. Whereas digits, we basically understand every category, vendor, customer, all of these different vectors across the system, and then also how they're related to each other. So you have this like n-dimensional space on the back end that we see that like Lyft and Uber are typically categorized correctly, and like what time of day and where were they booked and all this kind of stuff, and all that comes together, and that we learn as every action is taken. And so all of our models are trained on over $1 trillion of small business spend in the US. And so that every vector that like when things come in, it'll go through, you could think of digits as like a layer cake, where it starts on the reason the percentages can get so high and how much it auto categorizes is that we actually train an individual model on every single company. So for your clients, they come in and you do the work on the bookkeeping, we're training specifically on that client. So anytime a new transaction comes in, we see like, has this client seen a similar transaction? If we have, we're effectively perfect because we've seen how you did it before and we've booked it. Now, if we
There's no
haven't, if there's like
accepting and reviewing. It's done.
correct. And then if we see something we haven't seen before, we do have kind of like a firm model where it's like, has your accounting firm seen a similar transaction? If it has, like, how was that booked? And it can book it. And then we have our global model, which is like, has this been seen anywhere? And so with all of that, it basically, and then like, obviously, worst case, like, literally, I've never seen this transaction before. It's a brand new coffee shop, like in Rhode Island somewhere that someone went to. We do what's called a zero shot fallback to an LLM. And so what that looks like is we build like a dossier about a transaction. Like, here's some information about this transaction. Here's the stuff we know about this individual transaction. Here's a couple categories it might be. What do you think? And that helps us give a suggestion. But if we don't really get good answers or there's low confidence, it just gets thrown out and we surface it to you and say, hey, what's going on here? And so that's where there's a long-winded answer of like, why don't you have rules? But ultimately, like, we just learn from every action you take in the system. There isn't a need for rules within the system.
I think about it too. It's like whenever you go to grandma's house and you have to rinse your dishes before you put them in the dishwasher. No need to rinse them. It just washes them.
Yeah, they just wash them.
Yeah. Okay. So Heather, we've got a few more questions. I'll tag you. I'll tag you while you're laughing at me.
Sure. So I think Michael had kind of drilled down on his question
Yeah.
about the accrual. So
Yeah. So just to answer that, like we handle full accrual bookkeeping. So just like for as an example for AP and AR, if you use digits systems, it actually does book an accrual versus cash. So if you're using our bill pay or invoicing system, it'll just do the accrual bookkeeping on the back end. Same if you use our bill.com integration or our ramp integration, it does the same. So we should be good there, but obviously that's going to be dependent on the integration itself. So if it's based on like an outside vendor, we need to obviously build that integration appropriately that it handles it in accrual fashion. But like Digits is built to handle both cash and accrual. And then obviously like there's different automations as it relates to accrual around like prepaids or fixed assets or depreciation or whatever that will kind of like slowly build directly into the system.
he also asked about the payroll. So the payroll that's coming in, you talked about Gusto, but having the payroll come in as of the pay period end date rather than the date that the payroll is actually paid. Is there anything that would allow for that, or is that something that's on the roadmap?
Let me see. I might need you to re-articulate that question back to me again, and I'm going to ask someone. We'll do it live. Let's see.
We always love that.
Quick question. All right. Say that again.
So where if a payroll is being processed within the being processed by Gusto and it comes in, it has the pay date, so the date that I actually get my paycheck and the money's transferred, right? And then there's the pay period end date, which is typically the week before, at the end of the month, things like that. So can you have it come in? I did see where that Gusto integration came in and it was dated May 31st and you tagged it and said, "Hey, this actually hit your bank on June 1st." And so that's
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
there, but it could
Yeah.
also be that, my payroll was I was paying somebody on Friday for a week, the week that ended last Friday. And
Hmm.
so on the reports that come in from the payroll company, it would actually say pay period ending the week before. Would it have the ability to actually book it at that point?
So it's basically like, does it come in on the pay period end date or on the pay date? And can you
Correct.
edit that?
Yeah. And can you edit that? And Michael, please correct me if I explain that incorrectly. He says I was right on.
I always love hearing that. It's like, oh, you're right. Thanks.
Okay. I just asked like an actual CPA how we handle that. Our head of product for the entire ledger is a CPA.
Oh, cool.
So she is very thoughtful about all that kind of stuff. So I'll see if she answers or if we
Okay.
go in a million different directions. But if not, I'll respond asynchronously and answer that question as I'm not exactly sure
Okay.
right now as it relates to that. I also see that Michael just asked, does Digits have a Dext type application? And this is kind of a fun one. The answer is like if you use Digits, you don't actually need Dext. We've built it directly into the product itself. So
Mhm.
we have basically a document repository or a vault built into Digits that you can either forward information into. So, like, forward a bill, a bank statement, a receipt, a check, whatever it may be. We will ingest that, and then the AI will actually like determine what it is and then set it up for whatever appropriate action needs to be taken. So, just as an example, I'll show this in the product real quick. You come in and we have a whole documents area, but what you can see is that if I just look at all my clients, what is this saying? No, cancel. I have this email address that I can forward things to. So if things get emailed in, it'll automatically come into the documents. And then what will happen is if we see that it's a bank statement, it'll just go find the reconciliation, like the month and the account that that bank statement is associated with, and just do the reconciliation for you. If it's a
Nice.
bill, it'll bring it over to our bill pay and then just automatically set it up and like extract all the information, has due dates, all that kind of stuff. It does automatic line item splitting if that's what you're interested in, and it'll set it up for that bill to be paid. If it's a receipt, it will go automatically match it. If it's a check, it'll go automatically match it. And all of that will then just live on the individual transaction within the ledger. So if I'm here, Gusto's about United Healthcare. Let's just say, for example, there's an attachment. That attachment would just show up right here as we will have like matched it to that transaction appropriately at that point in time.
Really
So
cool.
obviously, if there's a use case for Dext that I did not touch on that you want or would need, obviously let me know. But like broadly, what we found is like Dext is not something that's necessary when you use Digits. So
Nice. I have a couple of poll questions.
Yep.
So I'm going to go ahead and launch the first one, which is what's your biggest challenge that Digits AI could help solve? So based on what we talked about today, and we have quite a few options there. And getting clean, accurate data faster, turning numbers into insights clients understand, keeping reports updated in real time, or scaling advisory services without adding staff, or others. You can just throw it in chat. So yeah. So we'll just leave that up for a minute and then share it out.
and then while that's going, Michael just asked, does it extract line by line on the bills? And the answer is yes. I think I only very briefly showed it, but
You
it
did.
does
Yeah.
line item extraction. And so it right now doesn't do like AI on the line item. So you'd have to go in and kind of like highlight each line and where it's supposed to go, but it does do that directly within there.
So I heard you say not, it doesn't yet. Is that, did
Hmm?
I catch that correctly? I think you said it doesn't yet extract
Oh,
line
so
by
it'll do
line.
the extraction of the line items and you can categorize the line items. What
Okay.
it's not doing is reading the line item and
Okay.
then making a
Categorizing it
suggestion
automatically.
based on that line item.
Okay.
It's basically just extracting it so that you can book it appropriately and correctly, and then you can go and do that. Eventually, we'll have kind of like a model that
Helps
just
to
does all of
facilitate
that.
that. Got
Right.
it. Nice.
So, so only one said getting clean, accurate data faster. 53% said turning numbers into insights clients understand. 13% said keeping reports updated in real time, and 20% said scaling advisory servers without adding staff. And then Michael shared that he's doing a happy dance, so that's exciting. And
Makes
then
things
somebody said they were going to throw it in
easy.
the chat, but I'm not seeing anybody. I don't see anything in chat, so we'll keep an eye out for that. So thank you. And then we have one other poll, which I might as well do right now. And so this is, would you like to learn more about digits? So we just kind of scratched the surface with Rob today. We have another video, but would you like to have Rob and his team reach out to you to give you more information about digits and really start to dig into it? So I'm going to leave that up. We'll leave that up for just about a minute. It looks like there's a ton of people that are really excited to, yes, please. Yes, please. So that's fantastic. Um, so yeah, really great
Awesome.
stuff. So
Yeah. I mean,
you know,
obviously, I'm happy to chat further with folks, and I have a bunch of folks in the team who are obviously happy to chat further. The other nice thing is you can also come in and just try out digits as well. So if you go to our partner, you can go to like accounting partners on the website, sign up. It will drive you to a call that like you can choose to go to, or otherwise it's basically just goes to someone on our team who helps understand our partnership program, how we typically work with accounting firms. You could just skip the call if you want to, and it'll just send you to drive to like sign up for digits, and you can like do it yourself if you want to. If you have questions, help@digits.com is like easily available, or you can just get my email from Heather and Liz and email me directly, and I'll try and navigate getting you answers appropriately as well. But yeah, lots more to unpack, and different things to navigate. But the energy we've seen from the profession has just been like palpable. Like there's clear feeling, well, there's a lot of feelings because there's a lot of reasons to have feelings, but there's also a lot of like need for change to some extent. And we're we've had a lot of fun partnering with the profession so far, and want to keep that up and make sure we're building what folks are looking for. So a lot more to come as we go.
you know, it's interesting having been in the problem solving, accounting technology problem solving space for most of my career. You know, the thing that blows my mind about this is that, you know, mapping was a big part of my life for a long time. And that's really
Mm.
the big giant thing that Digits is solving as far as bringing this data in is there's no reason to map. You've got the bots mapping, you know, mapping to the right account, and it's fantastic. So love that.
It is nice, and it takes away, the disadvantage that some have because that's not their strength.
Right.
You and I, Heather, have always loved digging in and getting dirty with the data.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's that does require you to slow down, and so
It
being
does.
able to have it automated is
And
quite
it, and it
lovely.
can and it can be frustrating. I mean, it's frustrating
Mhm.
and for a lot of people it's super
Take a
tedious.
break.
I mean, the tedium of that, you know, was always getting to the end when it actually worked was always like
Mhm.
the big you know, but you know, being having an application like Digits where it just works is even better, right? So
Yeah.
love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Speaking of working, so there are a couple of Facebook questions, and I do want to
Mhm.
ask these. So,
Fire
um,
away.
oh yeah, okay.
I said fire
So,
away. Yeah.
one of our viewers is asking about complex companies. So,
Yeah.
I think that what they're talking about is professional services is something that Digits is primed and ready for. But what about other industries? We talked about construction, but what else?
Well, I guess I'd be curious. I mean, obviously, I'd be curious if there are um, specific ones that they're looking for, and then also like as it relates to that, what specific problem they're looking to automate. So, just to like play this out a little bit further, just being like honest, the biggest barrier for most more complex industries isn't actually like can digits handle the accounting. Like, yes, there's a couple little things like projects that we need to build, but like
Mhm.
that's one of the only like hanging chads left, to bring back a metaphor from the early 2000s. But like
Heather, your
for the
reaction was
most
great.
part, the biggest blocker is actually just the integration of like the data integration. It's like, because for most of these use cases, like you can book the manual journal entry. It's just like that's kind of a pain in the ass. The problem is that Digits does have a disadvantage. Like, legacy ledgers have a 30-year advantage, like data moat of like all the things that they integrate to. And like we're not stranger to that, but at the same time, like we launched our API in November. We've already built out direct integrations to Bill and Ramp and Mercury and like all of these folks those are more money movement products, but there's somewhere to like I'm very close to the like Omri at Anchor. We're close to the practice ignition people. Know Carbon very well. Like there's all of these like industry tools that we're also super familiar with and are in like talking with. And then there's like hey, I work with like plumbers. I need like Service Titan because
Mm,
that's where they do all their invoicing, and I need that to like flow into Digits. And so like a lot of it is just like, where do you want to focus? How can you help us drive our focus? And some of this as well, like we have a fully open API that, just to be clear, we are not and will never charge for other people in the market, but may. But in that world, like go to those integration partners and tell them that you want them to integrate to Digits, because that ultimately like is going to be the biggest driver of this. Like I can
yes.
send emails out the wazoo to all these companies and be like,
Hmm.
accountants want your stuff.
Yeah.
But they
But
need to
we
hear
need to be
from
the
both
ones.
sides
Yeah,
for
I
them
hear
to
you.
like, figure that out and prioritize appropriately as well. So there's a bit of a chicken and an egg where it's like we can absolutely handle more complex businesses. And then it's mostly just like, is the data entry into Digits itself like
Uh,
automated is really the biggest question. The other
yeah.
part of that is like a lot of those more complex industries have more complex like ASC like accounting practices. So like even SaaS, it's like as you scale, you need ASC 606 like RevRec compliance. And so for us, as we build out like schedules of all different kinds, it's like if you're in real estate, you probably need lease schedules. And like each one of these industries has like specific areas of accounting, which is why I ask like at what level of depth do we like support, right? Where it's like, is the data getting in as one? Then the secondary aspect of that is like, are we automating the manual and pain in the butt parts of that industry? And the answer is that we will. But that part will kind of like be a slow step as we go.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I've loved having all of these conversations with you. And there's even still another question that I'm going to wait to get through some of these slides right here to ask you just to get an answer for one of our Facebook viewers. But I could not end our session without sharing with everybody the Rob bobblehead.
I love this bobblehead so much, and I'm going to take full credit because the Rob bobblehead was totally my idea. So,
The thing
100%.
is, Liz, is I'm now gonna need you to like make an actual bobblehead. Like you need to
right.
get in touch with a bobblehead community like company
Love
and make it. Yeah.
it. I just think he's super cute. And
Yeah,
I think we
absolutely.
had lots of questions that were ready to go, but we had plenty of interaction. So there's still, I think, so much that everybody is interested in. So keep asking questions. We will send them to Rob. You can send them to Heather and I. You can send them through Facebook, however, but we'll continue to stay in contact with you, Rob, to get some of these answers that people have out to them or questions that they have out to them. So
Absolutely. And I'm obviously like happy to do more of these. You two just let me know to the extent I can be helpful in any one of these cases. And yeah, there's one quick thing I just if you don't mind me showing something really cool
for
real quick
sure. Let me
um
stop here and
that we just launched like near the end of the year, where one of the things that we had planned to talk about but didn't quite get to is like this cleanup use case. It's obviously like tax season,
oh
and a
yeah.
lot of folks are coming in and doing annual cleanups and things like that. One of the things that we launched was the ability to drag and drop multiple bank statements into a reconciliation at once or
Hmm.
forward them at once. So I have 5 statements here, and I'm just going to drop these in here, and you can see it's going to start auto reconciling. So if I have all my data already in here and you have the statements, you can just drag and drop them in. It takes a couple minutes because it's going to assess all of them. I don't know if it'll finish by the time we're done with the call, but like one of the most powerful use cases we've seen is, hey, my client is coming in and maybe their books are a dumpster fire. It doesn't make sense to actually like bring them over from QuickBooks. I'm just going to start them fresh. All you need is the bank statements for the last 12 months. Digits actually will, like, even in the ledger itself, if you go add a transaction, you can import bank transactions from a PDF bank statement. And so
I
in
like
that
that.
world, you basically just bring in all the statements. We'll extract all the transactions, we'll book them into the ledger, and then automatically do the reconciliation, all in like a bulk action. And so in that world, like from a cleanup perspective, we've seen accountants be like, I did 4 years of cleanup in like 2 hours. And so
Wow.
it's just that use case has become pretty visceral for folks of a real efficiency saver for their clients. So
Awesome.
anyway, sorry to interrupt, and I know we're at the
No, that's
I
great.
think we love it. So
Yeah.
keep developing. We're going to keep giving feedback. And so um, for everybody who is interested in what's coming up next, so on February 10th, we've got the accounting, we've got Account Eero that's going to be joining us. So this is going to be a solution that many of you are probably not familiar with. So it was new to me, but they are not new. They have been around for quite a while, and they're going to be doing some really cool things. So it's asking questions, interaction with AI. So lots
Yeah.
of interesting things that they're doing there.
Yes.
And then we're going to have a conversation with how is AI impacting newly degreed accountants? So this is going to be interesting. So, so students that are coming out of college, how are they getting jobs? What do those jobs look like? What are those firms looking for? Do they have the skill set to be able to step into a firm and utilize AI? So we've got a student that will be joining us. And then February 10th, we're going to have 2 accounting firms
March
that are
10th.
pressure testing AI.
Yeah, that's March 10th, Liz. You said February 10th.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
And then March 24th, we're going to have App Vendentory with us. So that's going to be a solution that really helps more of the accountants out there who are doing app implementations for your clients. That's a really great solution. It does several other things too. So controller type work. So I would say all of these episodes that are coming up are very insightful. So make sure to stay tuned and join us.
Yeah. It's exciting. All right, everybody. Thank you so much, Rob. It's been, as always, super fun and exciting and interesting to hang out with you. So thank you.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you again for inviting me and meeting with the community and all the above. So yeah, it was a ton of fun. I did just get an answer on Gusto if it's helpful. I can read
Oh,
it.
sure.
And I probably didn't type because Shelby, who's on our enablement team and is an accountant, said, I'm not sure I understand exactly what you're asking. So I probably mistyped something or fat fingered it. But she said the Gusto integration has the payroll journal entry come in as of the last day of the pay period. Gusto debits the bank account usually within 1 to 3 days of the pay period. These both go into the payroll clearing and net to zero. And then said, however, you can change the date for both the importer journal entry and the bank debit if you wanted to for whatever reason.
Awesome.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
great.
I don't know if that answers what Michael's original question was, but
I think it does. I think it
Okay.
does. Yes. And he said awesome in all caps.
beautiful. I love it.
So
All
tell her
right,
thank-
everybody.
Well, bye everyone.
Take care,
Take
y'all.
care.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.